Hi, everyone. Welcome to Classics You Slept Through. I know it's been a while, and you may have forgotten, but we are actually the book podcast that reads and discusses classic books. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who doesn't play chess. Do you play chess? I don't even know if you play chess.
No.
You don't play chess. So, along with a girl who does not play chess, my sister, Mare. How's it going, Mare?
Pretty good. You did all those vocal warm-ups that you pod people can't hear, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Welcome to Classics."
This is a little weird because I've actually seen you in between pods for the first time in like
I know.
forever. Normally, I only see you on the pod.
I know. Remember, pod people, when we had a break because I had a baby last year? She's 1, and that's where we saw each other, at the baby's birthday party.
Exactly, which birthday parties for 1-year-olds are really birthday parties for adults, and they're just sort of children present, really, because the baby doesn't care at all.
No, she didn't even want to
None
eat her
whatsoever.
cake. I was like, "Just bite it." She's like, "Meh."
Wasn't interested. It's fine. My kids got to swim; they were happy, so
Yeah,
that
they
was a
stayed
win
in the
for me,
pool,
I
like,
suppose.
the whole time.
Literally the whole time. They live for that. I don't know why. Well, I do know why I don't have a pool, but anyway,
I remember being
we're
a
to
kid
try
and
and
not
get them swim
understand-
lessons.
Oh.
I would say
remember-
we're to get them swim lessons to improve strokes because they kind of can swim, but they don't know how to swim efficiently. Anyway, I don't swim at all, so
I remember being a kid and not understanding why adults were like all lackadaisical around the pool or like just sitting outside. I'm like, get in here, swim to the bottom, fetch rings, and then come back to the top. I don't understand why everyone's not in the pool. My
nope.
audio's-
I'm just gonna sit in the shade. I'm gonna sit in the shade and just enjoy the weather. It was hot though. It was
really hot.
super hot that day. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so enough about our little catch up here. We have started a new book, and we've given you copious amounts of time to digest these first 5 chapters before we've talked about it.
That was the plan all along.
Exactly. Hopefully, we'll get some stability to our podcasting schedule. I think, I personally have been sort of in limbo for many, many months, trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing with the rest of my life. I know it's midlife crisis already.
What do you want to be when you
Yeah.
grow up, Kyle?
Right. Do I want to buy a house? Do I want to get a job? What do I want to do? So I think we're nearing the end of that road. So hopefully we'll get more consistent podcasts here in the near future. Inshallah, as we always say. But today we are talking about our new book that we're reading, sort of the second half of a pair of books. We've already read and discussed all of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And now we are talking about his follow-up, Through the Looking Glass, and what Alice found there. I do love the parenthetical secondary titles, subtitles to the book. So I do like the fact that it has one of those.
Because it's not just through the looking glass. There's things that she found there. that are
Right.
interesting. You
The
know?
going through the looking glass portion gets over with very quickly. She finds quite a bit behind that looking glass. So how do you feel about getting into this thing?
It's not as scary as it was when I was a kid. I was so scared of it because of, as we'll see, the Jabberwocky picture. I was too afraid of the Jabberwocky poem and all of that. So I'm glad it's not as scary as I had originally thought.
Well, excellent. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, and I hate to say you might miss out because we're debuting a new feature this week, diving further into visual media. So if you are watching us live on Twitch, you'll see this. And if you choose to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out all of our discussion videos there on YouTube, you can get not only the spoken word versions of the books on YouTube, but also you can see us in living color on these beautiful discussion episodes that we do there on YouTube. So go check us out. Link is in the show notes. But please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe to these videos, because once we get enough subscribers, we can actually have a nice custom URL to the YouTube channel. Until then, you can search YouTube for Classics You Slept Through, or like I said, hit the show notes. All right, but if you're watching live, we are going to discuss. So one of the things that I love about this book, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, are the amazing illustrations, the original illustrations by John Tenniel, the original illustrator. They're just fantastic. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through some of the illustrations as we read. So if you're watching us on YouTube or on Twitch, I'm going to bring us over to our video photo discussion setup here.
You know, as you do this, I have to say, I'm listening to... Ooh, it looks good. I'm watching it on Twitch. It looks great.
It looks great, right?
But I'm listening to Kurt Vonnegut's Breakfast of Champions, and John Malkovich reads it. And in Kurt Vonnegut's books, there's always illustrations that he's drawn alongside. And since it's an audiobook, I'm not very good at John Malkovich's voice, but it'll be like, and here is an illustration of a car, and the car's door is open.
Wow. Okay.
That's and Vonnegut often draws like inappropriate body stuff, and then you have to listen to John Malkovich describe exactly what is in the picture. It's great.
Fantastic.
So
well,
we can translate the visual
we can
to the audio.
So if you're just listening to us, you're missing out on seeing a picture of our heroine Alice sitting in a chair with a ball of worsted playing with the black kitten. Because that's the first illustration that we've popped up as we get into chapter 1 here, Looking Glass House.
Yeah,
so
she's in a big comfy armchair with stripy socks and shoes. The kitten's on her lap. It looks very comfy. So.
Very much so. And if you want to see it, pop over to our YouTube channel and you can check this video out and see this picture for yourself. All right, so we kick off the story. It's very a comfy scene, right? She's at home. She's sitting by the fire. The kittens are playing. And we quickly learn, our cat from Alice in Wonderland, Dinah. These are Dinah's kittens. Mm-hmm. She's got a white kitten and a black kitten. And she definitely blames the black kitten for all that is about to befall her. So they're sort of, she's playing around. They're playing with some wool. She's mixing it up, and the cats are batting it around. So it's just sort of it's a very warm, sort of sleepy feel that I get right now. Even thinking about the start of this chapter.
And I like what Alice is doing. She's basically what I thought as I was reading it. She's playing at being an adult. She's 7.5, I think. We learn later.
Yes.
And so she's scolding the kitten, and she's like, I'm going to tell you all your faults, and there are 3 of them, and here they are. And she lists them out. And she doesn't punish the kitten, but she thinks that she should, and it would be the right thing to do. And it was just cute listening to a 7.5-year-old basically do what's done to her, to the kitten, and play at being an adult in that way with the kitten. And I hear my son do that stuff sometimes, and he'll be like, Mommy, if you're not nice, you're gonna go in timeout. I'm like, oh, it does not work that way.
No,
sorry, the power structure here is not in your favor. But then it goes into the Alice's let's pretend, and has a little bit of commentary on all the times Alice has said let's pretend ...
Yes.
And I really like that section.
Yeah, it's very kind of pleasant and nice and sets us up. But it's a very different feel from Alice in Wonderland. So, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but when I picture Alice in Wonderland, the book, I picture these very bright colors. And when I picture Through the Looking Glass, I get a visual of sort of much more muted, like darker colors. Like, this chair she's sitting at in the picture, I picture it in sort of a deep red velvety color. I don't know, maybe that's just me.
But
okay, all right. Sure, yeah.
But it is a little dark. It is a little bit.
It is
darker. Like some of the elements that we're about to see seem darker than Alice in Wonderland. In general, and we'll get into those.
I think so. So when we get our first mention of chess, so she explicitly asks the kitty if it plays chess, because apparently Alice had just been playing chess a few minutes ago, and the kitten was observing as though she knew what was going on. And then she speculates as she's sort of lounging and lazing about the room. And I could just see this child sort of sleepily. She's just sort of looking about the room and just seeing what is there. And it's sort of a stream of consciousness narration of what she's seeing. She sees the looking glass, the mirror above the fireplace on the mantle, and says, "Oh, I wonder what's on the other side. Sometimes I can look and I can see things on the other side, but I see the backs of things, and there's a hallway, and I can kind of see what's back there." And have you ever done that before? Have you ever tried to like look in a mirror and see what's behind you? Like your focus, it's just
really
very
difficult.
it's disorienting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird.
She thinks of it as a full other house.
Right.
She calls it the looking glass house. And I wonder if they have a fire, because sometimes I see smoke when we have a fire, but that could just be pretense. Maybe they don't actually have a fire and it's just the smoke itself, because I can't quite see that spot.
Right.
Having like the mirror in front of the baby in the car so that I can see her reflected in the rear view mirror. Sometimes I get a glimpse of myself, like the back of me. So I'm looking at her back is to me, but I can see her face, so I can see her front, and then I look in the mirror and I see my back, and then I'm like, who's in the car? And I get really disoriented seeing myself move around. So for a kid, no, it's like a mind warp. No wonder she's imagining.
Yeah, exactly.
This. I love it.
Yeah. So she crawls up onto the mantle, and she decides to go through the looking glass. She begins to push on the mirror, and it sort of gives way as it turns gauzy, and it gives way, and she comes through onto the other side, and now she's in Looking Glass House. And as you see, as she transitions through, now she starts to see things are weird. She saw the back of the clock in the mirror, and now it's got the face of a laughing man. She climbs down, and she sees the chess pieces, which she couldn't see because I suppose the chessboard is obviously down lower than the field of view of the mirror in her house, next to the fireplace there. All the pieces are moving around. And she has her first interaction with the Looking Glass inhabitants here. One of the pawns is crying. Yeah, one of the pawns is crying, and she realizes, go ahead, they can't see her, right?
They can't see or hear her, but she can hear and see them, and she can interact with them, even though they can't see or hear her. So she feels bad because the pawn is crying, and it's really the queen's baby, Lily, and the queen's like, "I'm coming, Lily," and she picks up the queen, and the queen just experiences exploding into the air,
right,
onto the table, and she describes it as a volcano, and she's like terrified and stunned.
Exactly. It's kind of bizarre, actually.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And she does the same thing to the king.
Right, she does. She picks up the king, and he is terrified as he begins flying through the air. He sets him down, kind of dusts him off. We go through this, a couple of vignettes. The king and the queen are talking. They don't know what's going on. They feel like something's wrong. He tries to make a note. Alice takes control of the pencil and writes for him. Passes out, and she wants to throw ink on him to wake him up.
She doesn't have any water, so it makes sense.
Right. It's just all very strange. And also we get in here sort of the inconsistencies of Looking Glass House, because these inhabitants, she's invisible to these people, to the chessmen. And we sort of drop it. She's not invisible to anyone else throughout the book. The rest of the people can see her. So Looking Glass world has some inconsistencies in its rule structure here.
I wonder if it has to do with the fact that the parlor is the reflection of her actual parlor, and being inside of it is like this contained space that actually exists, and they can't see through the other side. And then when she exits, now she's in a totally imaginary world that is not reflected in the mirror, and therefore it just it has this other, everything has an otherworldly element to it, but maybe it makes sense a little bit.
The only things in Looking Glass House are the things that are reflected in the mirror, And once she's through the mirror, she is no longer reflected and therefore can't be represented in Looking Glass House.
Yeah. Yes, which brings me to a point that we're going to make in a later chapter about whether or not Alice is real in the first place.
Ah, interesting. Okay. So we end chapter 1 with, and many things in this book just sort of, they're iconic and we know them and they're just sort of there. Like there's no rhyme or reason. She just picks up a book and starts to read it, and it's the Jabberwocky poem. It's originally backwards, and she realizes, oh, I need to hold it up to the mirror to actually read it, because all the text is backwards. So she picks it up, holds it up to the mirror, and just reads the Jabberwocky poem.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely amazing, which I love. And it's actually the first, I was going to say the next chapter is the first, but this actually is the first sort of shout out to the Disney movie, the first element the Disney movie pulled in. So the Disney movie doesn't actually have the Jabberwocky or the Jabberwocky poem in it, but towards the end of the movie, she does go into the woods and encounter mome raths, which are mentioned in the Jabberwocky poem. So I guess that is sort of the first reference to the poem in the movie.
And when I was a kid, I was terrified of reading through the Looking Glass and didn't want to read it because of the Jabberwocky poem and the Jabberwocky in general. Mostly, I think, because of the illustration. It was really
So the
scary.
illustration, which I just pulled up, if you're watching us, as we said before, it is a very frightening creature for a children's book. Like, it's a hideous monster.
Yeah, look at that. That's something out of Stranger Things. That's not. That is
I wouldn't
for
know.
children's.
I watched the first 30 seconds of that and then noped right out of it.
What?
I do not, I don't like scary things. So I was like, nope,
Oh.
not for me. I turned it
Well.
straight off.
Yeah. So, I haven't watched the newest season or seasons. I'm not sure. I think I did the first 2 or 3. I don't remember. Anyway, but terrifying. And
It is.
I also thought that reading the Jabberwocky poem somehow summoned the Jabberwocky. And so I wouldn't even let
wow.
Dad read it. I would like slam the book shut, I think. And,
Interesting.
you know, I was,
Okay.
you know, you used to have that book, you know, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which
Right.
was also
Sure.
terrifying. But I bought into like the myth of Bloody Mary and the mirror. Like, I won't even look in a mirror at night. I'm like, I don't
Wow.
want to risk it.
Wow.
And so it really got me. And I don't know where I came up with summoning the Jabberwocky with this poem. I think I just combined all of those like scary things as a kid
Sure.
and decided that that's what would happen.
Wow.
And it's not a
Well,
scary
anyway,
poem
yeah.
at all.
It's not. It's actually a pretty cool poem. It's, I guess, heroic almost, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to dwell on it, but basically it's a hero goes out and kills the Jabberwock and comes home, and I mean, it's almost what do you call it? Beowulfish, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he
yeah.
kills Grendel's mother and comes home and whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Anyway.
we end this chapter again with things that happen and maybe don't appear again. So Alice sort of floats down the stairs and realizes, wow, this is a lot easier than walking. I should do this all the time. I mean, maybe it's kind of mirrored later on with the Red Queen and her running, but I don't know. Alice has this ability to float run and then kind of doesn't.
Well, that makes me think so much of this is really well done with what happens in dreams, or at least in the way that I dream. So stuff in dreams happens like that, where one moment you're floating, the next minute you can't move, or you can only go one direction. Or I just had a dream the other night. I was in my office and my desk disappeared, and I was like, well, this is so weird because that would happen in a dream, but this isn't a dream. So where is my desk? And I was like, in my dream, I was screaming for my husband Ben to come and help me find the desk because it was just here, and I just
Wow.
couldn't pull myself out of sleep. But I was really adamant in my dream about how that would so happen in a dream, and
Sure.
it's weird that it's happening now in this thing that's clearly not. But
Yeah.
I could see like floating, and then you don't fly again in later in your dream. So maybe that's it.
Maybe.
Good
So that
enough.
kind of brings us, to a kind of an explicit difference between the two books. For all of its strangeness, Alice in Wonderland sort of has a consistent narrative or a consistent, like Alice just sort of, I mean, she's still, it's sort of a journey story where she goes and meets things, but there's quote unquote logical transitions and things sort of flow together. Whereas in this book, it's a little more disjointed, but because I think the chess metaphor, which we're getting into, right? Like each square almost is a disconnected world or vignette in and of itself.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll talk about that as we go. So then we get to chapter 2, the Garden of Live Flowers, and we begin with Alice sees this garden and a hill, and she keeps trying to walk, and she continually, as she tries to get to it, keeps winding up back at the house. And so this brings in the theme of being in the mirror world, like the opposite world. Like she has to do things backwards. So she decides if she walks away from the garden, that she will end up in the garden. And lo and behold, she does. And this brings us to our first explicit scene from the Disney movie. So this is the first scene from Through the Looking Glass that is mixed into the Disney Alice in Wonderland, which, as we've discussed in previous episodes, is a mix between Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. The Garden of Live Flowers, where she starts meeting the different flowers and talking to them.
I'm so glad you took that Jabberwocky picture down.
Yeah, it's a little creepy. So now we have the Garden of Live Flowers, where she goes through and she talks to the flowers, and they think she's a flower. They kind of criticize her and make fun of her for being an ugly flower.
Yeah, the rose and the violet are really mean. They're like, you're stupid.
Yeah, it's very tough. And maybe this is a kind of growing up. I mean, she's 7.5, which is a little early, but you think about, prepubescent teens that are just like, they're awkward, right? Like,
mean,
they're just all limbs and they're gangly and they don't know how their bodies operate and they're just awkward and, young teens you just gotta love them. So love your young teenagers, people.
I love how she threatens to pick the daisies.
Yes.
She's like, I'll pick you. I'm like, whoa. She just threatened to murder them.
Yes, just to murder these flowers. But they mentioned there's someone else, another flower that looks like her, and she hears a thumping, and it's the Red Queen.
Now, there's no, because in Alice in Wonderland it was the Queen of Hearts.
Correct.
Right? And this doesn't have, and she was a card. Because for a while I was like, why doesn't she remember Alice? But why would she? Because it's not the same queen. This is a different. It's not the same queen.
And you're getting confused because the Red Queen's speech is directly lifted and made into the Queen of Hearts speech in the Disney movie.
Oh.
That's why, curtsy now, it saves time, open your mouth a little wider, all ways are my ways. And yeah, so all of these things that she says, Disney puts into the mouth of the Queen of Hearts in the movie.
Okay.
But yes, in this movie, in Alice in Wonderland, we had the pack of cards theme. In this one, we have the chessboard theme. So we have the red and white queen. The Red Queen is not the Queen of Hearts, different queen, but they sort of have been merged by Disney in our minds, I think.
Yeah, so I definitely had a visual to go along with it when I was reading it.
Right.
And that's why. Okay.
Yeah, because the speech is the Red Queen, or the Queen of Hearts' speech from the movie. So then we get into how she runs, and we get this idea of she has to always run to stay in place, and if you stop in this world, that's when you end up going places. But you have to run as hard as you can just to stay where you are, which is absolutely sounds exhausting. I don't know how people live in this world.
Sounds like my life.
But then at the end of the chapter, the Red Queen explains, she lays out the chessboard system. Oh, I forgot to switch our picture to meeting the Red Queen, which I thought was fun, that it was, a thump, thump, thump through the woods. Like she's an actual chess piece hopping on her pedestal. Nice. Right. Yeah. So as you see there, I've popped up the next picture of actually meeting the Red Queen in the woods there and discussing what's going on. And then at the end of the chapter, the Red Queen lays out for us the structure of the world, where it's laid out as a chessboard. And she says, she kind of gives Alice the layout of a few of the squares and says, gives her mission, come to the 8th square where we'll all be queens.
Yeah, because
So-
Alice wants to be queen.
Correct. And in the story of chess, obviously in chess, if a pawn makes it to the 8th rank, you can promote them technically to any piece, but you make them the queen because it's the most powerful piece on the board, right? So Alice, in the previous chapter, they had mentioned that Lily, the White Queen's pawn, was too young. She's a baby, right? So I guess you have to procreate to keep the board going. I don't know. But Alice has taken the place. So Alice has become a pawn. So she's a pawn in this game now and is progressing forward to try to reach the 8th square and become a queen, where it's all feasting and fun.
That's a fun family Halloween costume.
A white king, white
Yeah,
queen,
especially if
and
you have a
Lily
little
the pawn.
baby.
If you had a little baby, yeah,
Little white baby Bond.
that would be.
Too complicated
so-
for me. I'm like,
Right.
rip some jeans and put some blood on. Oh, you're a zombie.
There you go. And that's the great thing about being a zombie, right? You can literally wear anything. And hey, I was at work and I got turned, or I was, it's got a
It's a
towel.
great
I was
thing
getting out of
about
the
being a
shower and
zombie.
got attacked. Yeah, there you go.
It's a great thing about being a zombie.
Easy costume. All right, so then we get into so the chessboard there, as you see, it says that the squares are separated by hedges and brooks. So we'll get into that here in chapter 3, Looking Glass Insects, where she sees in the distance, she sees these giant bees, and she thinks they're bees gathering honey or gathering pollen from flowers to make honey. And she looks carefully, and they're actually flying elephants. And she thinks, wow, those are really big bees off in the distance there, but they're actually elephants. And this is our first explicit chess transition. She jumps over a brook, and boom, now she's on a train.
Yeah.
There's no, it's just smash cut. She's on a train. And this is probably my favorite visual scene from the book, one of my favorite pictures, and why I really wanted to do this visual photo review for our Twitch and YouTube viewers, because there's so many great illustrations. I couldn't select a single illustration for the podcast cover for last episode because I don't want to waste this photo, because for some reason I adore the man in the paper suit and the goat. Just the two of them, I don't know. The two of them sitting there on the train, I think because this picture kind of suggests, maybe more than any other, the depth of this world and the things in it. Whereas Alice in Wonderland, everyone that Alice meets is basically connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got the White Rabbit works for the Queen of Hearts. She runs into the Duchess, who's, Duchess is, a member of the court, I guess, with the Queen of Hearts. So they're connected. And we've got the Cheshire Cat belongs to the Duchess. And then you've got Bill and Marianne and everybody in the White Rabbit's house. Yeah. I guess the dodo and some of those animals are disconnected. But then, the Mad Hatter and the March Hare that she runs into, they have some connection as well with the court. They're all sort of bound together. The through line is the Queen of Hearts, right? Whereas here Through the Looking Glass, the goat and the dude in the paper suit, they're just on a train.
Somewhere. Yeah.
The guy he's just sitting there reading the paper. The man in the paper suit is just checking out what's going on today. He doesn't care about the chess game. He doesn't care about the red queen or the white queen or any of that nonsense. He's just one of the citizens of this chess world.
So does he live in that square?
I don't know. Does the
do you
train
think- Yeah, does the
go
train
to other
traverse
squares?
Or does it didn't seem like it did, because the square was like she described it, in this square you'll find the train, I think.
Well, I think the Red Queen says it's faster to go by train in that square, doesn't she? I think she explicitly says something about it's faster to go by train.
Well, there's some deep world fan fiction you can get into.
Exactly. So she says, so here's from chapter 2 where the Red Queen is describing the chessboard. She says, a pawn goes 2 squares in its first move, so you'll go very quickly through to the 3rd square. By railway, I should think. And then you'll find yourself in the 4th square in no time. So, and, that square belongs to Tweedledum and Tweedledee. 5th is mostly water. 6th belongs to Humpty Dumpty. But you make no remark. The 7th is all forest, but one of the knights will show you. And in the 8th square, we shall all be queens together. So, she explicitly says, this 3rd square, you're going to get through it fast, because I think you'll go through by train, won't you?
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know. I think that's kind of cool, personally.
I do too. And I like, in this picture too, I like Alice's demeanor. She is just a little kid on a train with these 3 seeming adults. I don't know.
Right.
And she's sitting with her eyes down and her arms folded in her lap, and doesn't look like her feet quite touch the ground even.
Right.
In the photo. And the guy's got his, he goes from binoculars to telescope to opera glasses or something like that, and he's looking at her for her ticket.
Right.
And she doesn't want it. It's a good picture.
So we get some fun we get some fun things on the train here. She has this voice in her head that keeps telling her to make these terrible jokes, and she finally kind of she finally snaps at it and says, well, if you want to make the joke, why don't you just say it? Why do I have to make your joke? So that peer pressure, somebody goading you on to say something else. We also get the chorus, the thinking chorus, that, every time they reference something or say something, this chorus of voices on the train all sort of chime in. It's kind of fun, and say that, there's time is worth 1,000 pounds a minute, and the land is worth 1,000 pounds an inch or an acre or whatever. And so she keeps getting 1,000 pounds on her mind, which is sort of how dreams work, right? You get something stuck in your head, and then you sort of dream about it, something you heard or something in your as you're falling asleep. We talked many episodes ago about the repetitive nature of Jay-Z's Big Pimpin', how that got stuck in my head once, and I can't hear that song without having flashbacks to that moment, and that sort of dreamlike, I'm half asleep and I just hear that looping in my head.
I like this scene too, because it comes back to the living backwards idea in the whole world, and I didn't catch this upon like the first read through, but they're telling her, so young a child, you ought to know which way you're going, and you ought to know your way to the ticket office, even if you don't know the alphabet. So you should know these more advanced things, even though you don't know these very simple things. And so Alice is like, what? I don't know. How would I know? How would I find it? And they're like, God, that should be common knowledge to someone so young.
Nice catch. I did not catch that either. Very interesting.
Poor Alice.
Yeah. So then she gets off the train. What was it, the train crash or something, or the train?
She grabs
the goat's, get off the train. She grabs the goat's beard, right?
And then she grabs the goat's beard, and it all disappears.
It all disappears.
Because the train has to jump over the brook, and so I guess it's
right.
Square and disappears.
They were like, hang on, right? Everybody was like, hang on to something. We're jumping, and then she grabs the goat's beard, and then disappears, right?
Yep.
So then she's out, and she discovers that the voice in her head was the gnat. I guess he got off at her stop, and we have a little bit of discussion of some of the punny insects. Just gives a chance for Carol to show off some wordplay. We have, the bread and butter fly, the rocking horse fly, also visuals that Disney brought in. They did not use the train and the man in the paper suit, unfortunately, but they did show a rocking horse fly and a bread and butter fly in the movie.
The gnat is also the size of a chicken. Just for...
Nightmare
which I don't
fuel.
even know. Gnats are so small, I have no idea what they look like, so I can't even imagine it the size of a chicken. It's just like a black dot in my brain. Yeah,
the only time you see gnats are when they're like in a swarm, and you see the mass of them sort of moving around.
Mm-hmm.
But then she meets the fawn, and they're in the woods where things have no names.
Yeah, she forgets her name. Right. The fawn forgets his name, and they're like, well, let's figure it out together. And as soon as they do, they exit the wood. And Alice is like, oh, good, I'm Alice. And the fawn is like, you're a human child. And he runs away.
Runs away.
Which is a really interesting idea that the concept of naming something gives it some sort of meaning and power and value, and without a name it is devoid of that. So the fawn has no fear until he can name what the thing is, and it's a human, and I should be afraid of humans, and now I'm going to run away, which
Yeah. Yeah.
think
Well,
I'm
it's a common military school tactic. Well, at more unprofessional ones, not at federally funded ones, but at more private military schools, where you take away someone's name and you sort of dehumanize them. So when I was at Valley Forge, we had to refer to ourselves during the beginning and the sort of the new cadet plebe time. You'd refer to yourself in the third person. So you couldn't say I or me. You always had to say this plebe this plebe requests to do, and it really is. It sort of dehumanizes you and devalues you.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, it's not the greatest. I don't really recommend military school. I don't know if I'd recommend military school to people, but I guess it has its merits. I turned out okay, so But I think I was okay going in, so
Yeah.
you can balance that out too.
The idea of someone who's not okay, and it's like, if you don't get straight, I'm going to send you to military school, doesn't sound like the best plan.
No, they'll start listening to Twisted Sister or something, All right, then we get into chapter 4. We exit the woods and we enter and we meet back to the Disney movie. And if you look at the design of Tweedledee and Tweedledum here on John Tenniel's original illustration, I mean, that's basically, they just sort of Disneyify the face up a little bit, and they make them, I guess, more youngish and cheruby instead of sort of old man babies, like they're drawn here. Like they're sort of freakish looking, aren't they? Yeah, they're sort of, it's either that or you're listening to, you just need to throw Angus Young's guitar there, and we can get some AC/DC going. But
commitment
so she
to
runs
that outfit, Angus Young.
Yes. Oh my goodness, it's incredible. It is.
He's like, I used to wear it when I practice would be coming after school, so I just decided I would continue to wear it till I'm 78 years old.
70 some, yeah, exactly. It's God bless you, Angus. Keep on rocking, brother. All right. So then we get into goes into Tweedledum and Tweedledee. She meets the brothers, and I suppose the poem of Tweedledum, and I did not look this up. I should have, but I suppose this is a standard British poem.
I don't know.
That
I wrote
British
down
children would have known.
I wrote down WTF is up with Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and then it's this
Yeah.
song or this poem, and I'm like, I find them very annoying. I don't like them as characters.
Right. They had a battle over a rattle. I mean, it's amazing because as silly as they are in the Disney movie, like, that's how they're written. Like,
Yeah.
Lewis Carroll basically, he wrote, I don't know how the writers of the Disney movie did it. It was like the easiest job in the world. They basically just wrote the book. I mean, they had it right there in front of them.
So I did just Google it, and it says their names may have originally come from an epigram written by poet John Byrom. The nursery rhyme has a round folk song index number, blah, blah, blah. We don't care about that. Synonymous for it's slang for two people who look and act in identical ways, generally in a derogatory context. Okay, great.
So I guess Lewis Carroll made up had a battle over their nice new rattle. Because Alice knows this poem, right? Like, she knows the Tweedledum and Tweedledee poem when she meets them.
She does. And so there's it says it, although Byrom is clearly the author of the epigram, the last two lines have also been attributed to Jonathan Swift and Alexander Pope. While the familiar rhyme was not printed until around 1805, when it appeared in original ditties for the nursery.
Okay, so it was a nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
Dating back to 1805. So Alice and the children reading this book should have been familiar with the Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Yeah, or as early as 1725.
Oh wow! Okay.
In this epigram, satirizing disagreements between Handel and Bononcini. I don't know.
Okay. Well.
Further research for our pod people to do.
Exactly.
Which,
So
if you
please,
listen to this podcast, you probably
yeah.
don't appreciate being called a pod person. But
Yeah, so especially if you're under 25, why don't you research that and send us an email about it? We have not yet gotten any emails from anyone under 25 who listens to this podcast. All right, then we get it. So we get into the classic from, again, very nicely done in the Disney movie, the poem of the Walrus and the Carpenter.
yeah,
And this was one. So when I was divvying up our chapters, I was like, oh, do I want to do Jabberwocky or do I want to do Walrus and the Carpenter? Like, I didn't know which section to take from you and which to give to you.
you would have been better at this one. I tried so hard for like a Tweedledum and Tweedledee voice,
Ugh.
and I think it may have failed. I tried. I didn't try to do like a full British accent because I knew I would fail that. But I tried to do some sort of hybrid between that and just what I think they sound like.
Right.
Like, the word contrary-wise, I feel like can't be
Contrary-wise,
said
yeah.
without some sort of affect on your voice because it's such a
Right.
weird and difficult word. But I don't know. Sorry if I
Yeah.
failed, and you're
Well,
welcome if it was great.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Disney movie so much, and it is so affecting. Like, when I was doing the Garden of Live Flowers, like, all you can hear is the actual, the sort of the pompous, pomposity of the one, and then the silly sort of Brooklyn accent of the Lily. And anyway, it's just tough not to actually ape what the voice actors in the Disney movie did.
You did a good job.
But we get.
So
I tried anyway. I don't know. So then we get into the Walrus and the Carpenter. Wonderful story of these two fellows who want to meet some oysters. They go down and say, "Let's have some fun," and the poor oysters, they all end up getting eaten, which is just fantastic.
in the movie, they look like little babies. They have little baby
They
bonnets on.
do.
and they're so
It's
cute.
yes. It's actually pretty disturbing in the Disney movie. The wonderfully cute little oysters, and then they all get devoured. So we finish the Walrus and the Carpenter. We get, I thought, a really fun exchange where they're asking her who she liked better, because the walrus ends up tricking the Carpenter, and he gets more oysters, and she Alice says, well, I don't like the walrus because he did kind of pulled a dirty one on his buddy, so I guess I like the Carpenter better. And they counter with, well, he had as many as he could have, and he would have eaten more if he could have. And she's like, well, okay, yeah, I guess, so kind of painting her into a corner, which of these two fellas. And honestly, they're just trying to eat. I don't know. I can't really fault these guys.
The Walrus and the Carpenter. They don't
Yeah,
come by it by honest ways though, and they're little
hungry.
babies. Little babies. The illustrations of the Walrus and the Carpenter, especially the Carpenter with this very caricatured head. I love
Yes.
it. It's a really good drawing.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And the Walrus
Disney
has
kind
shoes on
of
his
cutened him
slippers.
up. Yes. Very difficult to walk. All right, then we get into probably one of my more favorite elements of this book. Is all of this just a dream that the Red King is having? And when he wakes up, all of this goes away.
Which, when you read it, blows your mind because it's like, oh, Alice is having a dream. How interesting. That's fun. And then it's like,
Yeah.
no, Alice, you don't exist. You're just a thing in his dream.
Right.
And if he wakes up, bang, you're out like a candle.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like that at all.
No.
Being told she's
But
not real.
But the fact that these people are aware of that, it's
Yeah.
kind of scary, honestly.
She's like, what about you guys? They're like, yeah, us too. We're also
Yeah.
part of his dream. This is all a part of his dream, and we'll all be gone.
Right. So I've mentioned before the old Broderbund Alice in Wonderland game that I played when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and really I need to go download that thing, and I think it's on archive.org actually for free, but I need to go out there and play that thing again. But I have a memory of the Red King waking up being just this ominous thing that hangs over you in the game. And, you know, if the Red King wakes up, then the whole thing's over. It's just, I don't know. I think there's just, it's just, you know, fertile field here for some very terrifying psychological horror here of this guy wakes up and then you're done.
What if we're all just part of the Red King's dream?
Exactly. I find it interesting, too, if you look at our illustration here, the Red King has feet, and as we've seen earlier, his wife, the Red Queen, she has a pedestal that she thumps around on. I don't know, that's almost a little disturbing as well.
He's got, like, some sort of, like, accordion-style hoop skirt that if he were to stand, he would then look like...
Oh.
And it showed in the picture when she picked him up off the ground, he was like, looked like he was made of tires put together in some way.
Yes. Well, that was the White King, but yes.
Well, I assume
they're mirror images. Yeah, I assume they're mirror images of each other. True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
It's all a mirror image.
It is. It's crazy. All right, then we get into finally the but the battle mentioned in the Tweedledum Tweedledee poem. These guys finally get around to, hey, we need to, you know, my rattle's been broken. We need to fight now. And Alice realizes that the poem is happening. She's like, oh, this is what's happening here, which I guess lends itself to maybe that dream like this isn't real. This is all a dream, and it just sort of all repeats. Like this is the poem, and this is what happens, and this happens every night when the Red King sleeps. These guys go through their fight, living out this day in perpetuity. It's, you know, Groundhog Day or something. You just keep doing this over and over.
And they want to fight from 4:30 to 6, and then they'll have dinner.
Yeah.
That's how long
practical.
they want to fight.
It's practical. You don't want to miss dinner. You're going to be hungry after a fight. So she helps get them G'd up in all of their accoutrements there, and they're fighting, and she's like, come on, where's the crow? Is this crow supposed to show up and end this thing? And lo and behold, it does. The crow arrives, scatters Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and then she finds a shawl that's been floating around.
It's like a hurricane wind, though. This crow is huge. It darkens the whole sky.
Right.
And she's hiding from the hurricane winds, and the shawl blows away, and then chapter 5 starts.
Right. Which, as we remember, the next square that the Red Queen told us, the next square is all water, so keep that in mind as we go into the next chapter, Wool and Water. And she finds herself, she finds the White Queen. Oh, I am remiss here. I was supposed to, I didn't put in the picture of the White Queen. I'm so sorry. This is live. You know, we're Cubula O'Reilly, right? We're doing it live. Let me get the old White Queen in there.
So while you're doing that, she meets the White Queen, and the White Queen is all disheveled. There's a brush stuck in her hair, and her shawl is off, and Alice helps her get dressed. And the White Queen's like, I should hire you. And Alice doesn't want to be hired. And she gets her all set up, and she looks much better now after moving the pins. And she's like, you should really have a lady's maid. And she wants you 2 pence a week and jam every other day. And she's like, I don't want you to hire me, and I don't care for jam. Well, it's good jam, though, the Queen tells her. And she's like, well, I don't want any today. Well, you couldn't have it today if you wanted it. You can only have jam tomorrow or yesterday. You can't have it today.
Never jam today.
Never.
Yes.
And we start to get into this dreadly confusing thing, which is what Alice says. This is all dreadly confusing. And she said, that's the effect of living backwards.
Right.
And we come to this element of living backwards, which I love. Sorry, everyone is sick in my house. Well, Vincent is sick, and now I'm sick, and I feel like my voice is grating right now. Apologies. But living backwards, and your memory works backwards, and all kinds of things work backwards. And she explains it to Alice.
Right, which kind of goes into that you had mentioned earlier about Alice should know things as she, I guess, grows younger, right? Because she already should have the knowledge to start out with, and I guess start to forget things as you go. But yeah, so we get into this living backwards through things like the queen starts howling because she's going to prick herself soon. And Alice says, well, why are you screaming? You haven't, but I'm going to prick myself. And then she does finally. She pricks herself with her pin, and she just, well, I already screamed about it. I'm good now. Which
gotta let screaming out of the way.
That's actually kind of efficient. Like, imagine if you could just get up in the morning and just cry for 20 minutes and howl, and there's all my pain for the day. I'm done, and then just get it done with, and then you go through the rest of your day just fine. I don't know. It sounds kind of nice. Yeah, sounds kind of nice to me.
And they talk about the king's messenger. He's in prison right now, and he's being punished, but the trial is next week, and so he hasn't been sentenced. It technically hasn't been sentenced, even though he's serving it, which leads to this idea of the queen thinks it makes total sense. And Alice is like, well, I only get punished after my faults, after I've done something. And she's like, well, wouldn't it be great if you were punished first? Then you would never have to do the thing. Then you wouldn't have done the fault because you've already learned your lesson first.
You've already learned your lesson.
There's some logic in that, maybe.
It's almost Minority Report-ish, right? It's Tom Cruise is going to see what you're going to do in the future, and he's going to arrest you for stuff you have not yet done because you're going to do it in the future.
And then do you still do it?
Well, no, you've been arrested. They prevented the crime. Have you not seen Minority Report?
No.
Well, the idea is they have these.
I know the idea.
Mental,
of it.
Yeah. So they can see the future, and if someone's going to do something, they arrest you before you're able to do it, and therefore it sort of eliminates crime. Even though you're like, but I didn't do anything. And they're like, but we know you're gonna do it. I mean, that's you're talking about profiling. Wow, that's profiling to extreme, right? I haven't even done it yet.
But then wouldn't that negate the arrest because then they don't do the thing, right? Because then you've changed.
But their proof is that they were going to, because remember they can see the future.
You've changed
so
they know they were
going to.
Are you watching Loki?
We haven't yet. We haven't started yet. I know. It's this whole buying a house thing. It's wrecking my TV viewing even.
It's one of the most stressful things you'll ever do. Well, actually, I don't know about you.
Watch TV?
Been to war and stuff. No, buy a house.
I say it wrecks our TV viewing. We literally watch like just whatever Marvel show is on. Yeah, whatever Marvel show is on. It took us like 3 weeks. We were like 3 or 4 weeks behind on Winter Soldier as well. So, we'll get there. Anyway, I did watch Bad Batch this morning already, so I'm all caught up there. Anyway, so sorry, it's
did
good.
Your children make those signs?
They did. That's my Father's Day present. So,
aw, that's a good present.
It is, right? So I got Clone Wars. I got Clone Wars last year for Father's Day, and then they finished out the set this year. They gave me Bad Batch and Rebels, and as you see, we have them in timeline. We have them in Star Wars chronological timeline order, right? So it's kind of nice. And if you were on our Twitch or YouTube channel, let's plug that one more time, you would see those wonderful posters that my children made for me behind me there.
Did they make them as a group, or did Ellen lead the way?
She led the way, but I think they all contributed.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was nice. So anyway, so Alice gets the queen back into sorts, right? And then they go across the brook. And as we've talked, with these transitions, you cross the brook, you've crossed into the next square. Boom. So now she's in the square that is all water, and she finds herself in the sheep shop.
But the queen turns into a sheep, which was so fun to read. I went in all bleeding and baying. I totally went for it. And that was a lot of fun. So the queen turns into a sheep, but she's in the sheep's shop.
Right. And this is a very disorienting. This would be a fun one to see. Alice can't focus on anything. Like, anytime she tries to look at something, it gets into her peripheral vision, and she can't ever see what she wants to buy.
I've had dreams like that, where you can't attain the thing. It's just always out of reach. You can't quite see it. So I really identify with what she's going through, because I've had dreams like that. It was very frustrating.
super creepy. Very annoying, definitely.
Have you ever had a dream like that?
Or I can't quite reach something.
Yeah, or it's doing what it's doing. You can't see it all the way, and you're
No.
like, I should be able to see it. I can't see it.
No. The only recurring one I ever have is not being able to run, which is
I have that one too.
very scary. Yeah, it's
I hate
very
it.
creepy. So we go through the shop. She decides to buy some eggs, right? She says they're however much for one, and it's cheaper for two. I think it's like, I don't know, British money, right? 5 pence farthing for one and 2 pence for two. And she goes, oh, well, two's a lot cheaper. I mean, I'll buy two. And she says, well, if you buy two, you got to eat them both. She says, I might not like them. Okay, I'll just buy the one. Which, that's really good economic sense. Like you see, two for $10 or one for $6 or whatever, but do you really need to buy two?
Right.
I mean, $10 is still more than $6. Like, if you only need one of an item, just buy the one.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still saving money. You're not paying for two.
I think I always
Unless
thought
you're going to actually use the two. I mean, then, unless you're stocking up, yeah.
I think I've always thought that because Mom used to tell stories about our great Aunt Cornelia, and how she bought everything if it was on sale.
Oh my goodness.
And it would be like, here, I bought you this $400 fur coat. Well, I don't want it or need it, and why? Well, it was on sale. It was $800.
Oh,
well, I
there
only
you
needed
go.
this. I need a $20 coat. Why? What? It was on
Why did you do that?
sale. The deal
Don't you
was so
understand? Exactly.
good. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So
What a strange individual she was.
I guess if you're single, you don't have your own kids, you live alone, you
Nope.
can do whatever you want with your money.
We would always come back from her house with maybe 2 grocery bags full of magazines. Just probably
We use them?
15 pounds of magazines. Dad put them in the basement, and they sat there until Mom was like, you need to throw these up. Oh, my aunt gave these to me. Like, Reese, there are magazines just sitting in the base. Throw these things out. So, yeah, just tons of magazines. I think just random everything.
It's weird.
Anyway, so Alice buys these eggs, and, in good COVID-19 season fashion, the sheep says, well, I'm not going to put them in your hand. You have to get them yourself. So Alice tries to. She reaches for it. She can't reach the egg. And then, boom, she's suddenly in a boat with the sheep. And the sheep is knitting, just kind of chilling. And we're on the water.
Alice is trying to row, and she's trying to get these flowers. And the prettiest one is always the farthest one away. You just keep, oh, that one's prettier.
Yeah.
She's trying to get these things out of the water. And then she wants a crab.
Well,
Right?
the sheep says, that's a nice crab you caught. She's like, it is, yeah. But then Alice doesn't see it or something like that.
Weird.
Is that what she
But
does?
then we
It's
have the
very
egg
bizarre.
thing. The crab comes first, and then the eggs.
Yeah. Oh, the crab and the egg. So how do they get in the boat? I forget how they get in the boat then.
Well, they're already in the boat. I think she buys the eggs when they're in the boat.
They're in the boat. So she says, oh, wait, she says, you can row. And then all of a sudden they're in it, I guess. Yeah, I guess she just says, can you row? And then, yeah, very strange, the transition. And so then they're in there. She buys the eggs, tries to get it, and starts reaching for the egg, can't get there, and then starts to go through some woods, and suddenly that's the end of the chapter. And so we've reached...
Yeah. Well, it just as go through woods, everything starts turning into a tree. Every step, everything turned
Right.
into a tree the moment she came up to it. And she quite expected the egg to do the same. And then it's the next chapter, and we haven't read that one yet.
And that's the next chapter. And so that is kind of where we are here in Alice in Wonderland, or Through the Looking Glass. So we're going to finish Through the Looking Glass next time. Very excited. We're going to meet the White Knight. We're going to... What else are we going to do in this section?
Humpty Dumpty.
Reach the end of the board. We'll meet Humpty Dumpty, who is on the cover of the book, as we see. So a lot of fun stuff still in store for our heroine, Alice.
Lion and the Unicorn.
Yeah,
stuff.
the Lion and the Unicorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is apparently very political. So we'll have to
Oh.
do our British. Yeah, we'll do our British research on this one a little bit. Figure out what's going on with the Lion and the Unicorn. So a lot of fun stuff for Alice, but we've got a lot of fun stuff for you guys too. So why don't you join us on our social media accounts? We are all over social media, just tons of social media. At CYST Pod, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and the dreaded democracy-destroying Facebook. Yes, we are there too. You can join us there, and maybe we'll fight for democracy together and not let Zuckerberg make any more money. I don't know. You can also email us through the other giant corporation. We have a Gmail address, cystpod@gmail.com. Or you can, you want to throw some money out California's way, down there in Cupertino, go over to Apple Podcasts, rate and review us. Let people know about the show. Give us a nice rating there, because that helps other people find us online. Or you can just tell your friends, hey, listen to this great podcast of people talking about books. Hopefully we'll put you to sleep or something. Or at least you'll catch up on books maybe you haven't read before.
And we're racking up some good books. There's a lot. So, there was a big gap in Alice in Wonderland, but there are plenty of books to listen to in the meantime.
What do we have? 9, 10 different books out there, plus a short story. We got some
Plus
poems.
Poetry, yeah.
Right. If you've never heard Nate the Snake, I have Nate the Snake on there, which is phenomenal. You should definitely listen to Nate the Snake.
That was
what
about
else?
a year ago when you did that.
That was a long time ago. We've been
potting over a year.
I want to give a little shout out and say hey to all my CS brethren and sisters from the EECS department at West Point. We had a little mini reunion this week. There was a couple of us there on Zoom talking, and we were discussing things, and one of the guys was talking about this. He's into high finance and doing that whole thing, and talking about an app that he created to do financial stuff, invest. And I said, you know what? Hey, while we're plugging stuff, I got a podcast. And there was sort of a pregnant silence across, and I'm like, I think they think I'm making this up. And so I very quickly had to say, we've been doing it for over a year now, and I'm not just making a Twitter joke. I'm not just a white guy with a podcast. I legitimately have a podcast. So yeah, we've been doing this thing for over a year. We have 8 or 9 books in the back catalog. So if you haven't listened to all of our books, some of these classics maybe you've not heard before, just scroll down your podcast feed, find some good books back there.
We should do a best of episode sometime and talk about them, because I was having good reminiscing the other day, talking about when we did Northanger Abbey. That was great.
That was I enjoyed that. Yeah.
That was a good book, and I really enjoyed talking about it. And I can't believe we did The Awakening, which was gorgeous. And then I totally forgot we did the vivisection one.
Dr. Moreau, The Island of Dr. Moreau.
The Island of Dr. Moreau. What?
Great book. We did a short story. We did 2 Bro 2B, which was terrific.
It's
Great little short story. It's close enough. Close enough. All right. So that's that. I think anything else? We're going to wrap this one up.
No, I think it's good, and we need to get on a schedule and have plenty of new content. And
yes. We shall. Yes. So yes, look in your podcast feed. We'll have the rest of Through the Looking Glass shortly, and then we'll talk about it, wrap it up, and then go on and see what our next book is. I think it's your turn to pick, so see what you got cooking up for us here in a few weeks.
I don't know.
A lot of good stuff here now that hopefully things are kind of back on track in the near future. But all right. So cool. Until next time, this has been Classics You Slept Through. It is your turn this week to clap the erasers, so you drew the good stick. Enjoy.
Peace.